everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Sharper Edge podcast with Betty Parker. As I say every week, I'm so excited that you decided to stop by. This is episode number 22. I'm excited because I have a guest this time. Y'all don't have to hear me ramble on for the next half hour about something, but our focus is often people issues. And though we are trying to find ways, of dealing with challenges that people face at work, one other challenge could be just what do I do with my life? I'm in a career right now, or I'm trying to enter into a new career, and there's some uncertainty around it, a little bit of a lot of questions, quite possibly, about what next steps are. How do you create a pathway for yourself? So it's my great pleasure today to introduce you to our guest who's going to help you maybe define your pathway a little bit better. I'm joined by Alysia Kehoe. She is the CEO of Kehoe Consultants, and she is a strategic business coach. And now you might be like, what is that? She's going to tell us all about it. So I just want to welcome Alysia today. Hi, Alysia.
Hi, Betty. This is what I do. Yes, I've been doing this for a long time, like yourself, over 30 years, 25, 30 years. So there we go.
There we go. Can trust what you have to say. You've got enough experience in this space.
There you go.
Absolutely. So let's just get to the bare bones of it first, Alysia.
Sure.
Because some people might not even know what a career coach is. So they're not going to know if they need one. Can you give us the basics, the one-on-one on what a career coach is and does?
Well, there's career coaches for the individual who's looking for a job, and for them to really find out what their values are, their skills, and what their interests are, so that they can tell that to a possible employer. But there's also a situation where they're internal within an organization, and they want to really make sure that they're ready for their promotion, no matter what generation that they are. They're ready for the next step, and that they have the skills that they need and have connected to the right people. Internally, it's a lot of connections with different departments. Externally, when you're looking for a job, it really is networking and finding a company you want to work for, and find out the person inside the company who can help you get a job.
Very good. A lot of people I've talked to over the years, and so this is way beyond my scope. That's why I need you to, kind of take us through the basics of this. They might not necessarily know that they need a career coach. When would you advise somebody, engage somebody like you?
Okay, two possibilities. One, of course, is if you're a new grad, and I've had the pleasure of working a lot of new grads lately as they're getting their college applications ready for their next step, and making sure they've got a good resume. They've done some assessments, looking at what their personality types and so forth are. The second type of person is the one who is either probably a Gen Xer or a Boomer, saying, well, what am I going to do next? What do I want to look for as far as a promotion internally or externally? Or what do I want to do as a Boomer, to tell some things to the people who are on my team, to give my knowledge to them, and then what do I want to do afterward? And one of the expressions I use for the Boomers and the Gen Xers is not to retire, but to pro-tire, to progress to the next part of their lives. Because the retire word has seen better days. Pro-tire is, what are you going to do next? So it's that encore and the progression to another possible career. And as you and I know, there are certain assessments that people can do. DISC is great for that, especially within teams. Myers-Briggs is. And I also use what's called elevations for organizations, which really basically looks for their personality types, using Jung's theory, or the four temperaments, their values, their skills, as well as competencies, and then what are their interests? What do they want to do going forward? So it's one assessment that captures all of that.
Yeah, it sounds like it's very much designed for helping people to make the next move. And I like that you have defined, a lot of times when people think about a career coach, they're thinking, okay, I've done this work for 30, 40 years. I'm not yet ready to retire. I do want to pro-tire, right? But I don't know which way else to go. So, but what you just described is it doesn't matter what generation you're in, what age group you're in, you can always use a career coach.
And you're asking yourself different questions at each generation. So for basically, for boomers, they're saying, okay, what's the next phase that I'm going to be working on for my life or my encore? Where the Gen Xers are really saying that, what skills do I need and what executives do I have to talk to get those skills for me to make the next move? For millennials, basically, how do I stay engaged? Now I've been working for a couple of years. How do I stay engaged in my organization and really become a good producer for them? And do I ask management for a coach to help me do that? Absolutely. And then the Gen Zs, and we can get more detail on this. The Gen Zs really from the get-go, organizations should set them up for the mentor. I see mentoring as here's how I did it, but a coach is kind of coaching from behind, if you would, and
Mhm.
telling them here's some possibilities. Here's how you get along in this organization, because the Gen Zs don't know that, and that's a strong possibility. That whole onboarding thing, and there's one little article that I have in my book, uh, and that basically is, what do employers want?
Mhm.
And we can talk about them. Uh, may I show you one of the books?
Oh, sure.
Here. So this one is the newest of them. It's your design your career, determine your future, and in that one, I have 7 different contributors because I really want to make sure that they got different perspectives from just than me. The reinventing yourself, which Betty has a
Yep,
copy of
I have
that.
that one here.
There you go. And that one is really helping you with your encore. What do you want to do next on it? So a little different slant. I did start with the Reinventing Yourself book first because that's what I know, the Boomer and the Gen Xers. And then this one about designing your career. I really wanted to help people get started, young folks to get started who are millennials and Zs.
Yeah, so I have a Gen Xer, I'm sorry, a Gen Zer that
Mhm.
is just graduated college in May. We know that the job market is tough. She's received just her 200th rejection. But it also makes me wonder. I haven't seen where she's been sending things. At this point, she's so desperate for a job. She's just sending to everybody, right? Like that whole buckshot approach. But I know she probably needs to be more focused on where she applies for a position
Sure.
because yeah, you will get 200 rejections if you're going for positions that you really don't qualify for, especially if you're just getting into the work world.
Right.
So what do you say to, and we can start with that particular generation since they are the ones that are entering in, what do you say to a young person who doesn't have a very thick resume? Their resume is very thin. They might have some internships that they did while they were in college or some little work experience as a student. But how do they get their foot in the door?
Well, one of the things is, first of all, if they have a set of companies that they're interested in, to go on them, to find out who internally perhaps that they could talk to, or they have a friend who's now working at that company. That's always a great way to do it. But the other thing too is on their resumes. And I just did one for a young man who's trying to get into the Air Force. So it's a new grad. Is to make it very qualitative and quantitative. And when I was at the University of South Carolina doing some teaching there a number of years ago, that's what we did. We concentrate on making sure there's numbers in their
Mm,
resume, not just that they've done this thing, but how many of them have they done? Have they done only 4 or 5 of them, or have they done 14 of them? That's going to tell the person who's interviewing with them. So one thing for your daughter and others who are Gen Zs is to make sure it's very quantitative and qualitative in their resume. And then they follow that up also with their cover letter, if that's what's required, is to do that as well. But basically, networking is still where it's at because all the online pieces, and you don't know what the algorithm is that they're using. And it's disheartening. And yes,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people who've gotten, especially Gen Xers, who've gotten a lot of rejection. So I would say that for each generation, who do you know? I keep saying when I go to a function, I shake people's hands, I tell them what I do. Who do you know?
Mhm.
And for them just to keep doing that during the holiday season, it is fabulous to ask everybody at the table, here's what I'm looking for. Who do you know?
Yeah.
And get some referrals that way as well.
Absolutely.
So,
When I work on, well, just in anything you do, even if I want to purchase it as a consumer myself, before I make a big purchase about something, I'm actually going to find people who can recommend it, right? So
mhm,
I'm more likely to rely on somebody else's recommendation because they have the experience with this product or person. And
right.
so I can, yeah, that's why I'm a big, I believe in reviews. I go out and watch reviews, and people,
Mhm.
this is why companies will say, hey, drop a Google review for us because I'm going to see what's the majority saying about this before I invest any of my time or money in it. And I guess people have to see themselves as a product, right? In some
Yes.
senses.
And they're a quantitative and qualitative product.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, the one I did most recently for this Air Force Academy person who's going in, and very near and dear to my heart, actually. Uh, he he just did. He was very blah. It was very vanilla, the resume. So you have to make them excited. You also have to make them. There's also a summary statement we put up together and work on that together, and that's also very quantitative, even in the summary statement. For new grads, probably a one-page resume is just fine. But again, from all those experiences, for them to be, again, very qualitative and quantitative. And that's actually with each generation to do that.
Can you
I've
give us an example, Alicia,
sure,
on what would be a quantitative and what would be a qualitative
right,
point in your resume?
right. And that's also important with interviewing, which we'll talk about in a minute. But in the resume, very basically, it says that I have with my individual as an individual contributor to my team, I have done 14 reports on my own in order to get this project done, whatever the project is. I have, you can also quantitatively is basically um, over several weeks. So you think you use weeks, days, years. That's also quantitative.
Hmm.
I've done those particular things, and the results were this. A little mini statement is to use their STAR statement. And that is even just very quickly, even in their one line bullets, basically say, here was the situation, here are the tasks or actions that I did, and here was the result, which is that number thing at the end. Also, you do that during interviews. When people ask you, so tell me about this particular project, you say, here is the situation, here's the tasks and actions that I did, and you make it to yourself, and
Hmm.
here were the results. Not what the team did, but how you as an individual contributor did that particular thing. And that's actually very important with all the different generations.
Yeah. Great. That gives some people a little something to have in mind, and it's easy to remember and just
Hmm.
to be able to explain and tell your story.
Right, right.
Yeah,
And
people will find interest in that for sure. Go ahead.
even the statement that you have at the top, I call it PETS. And PETS stands for what's your profession, or what are you were majoring in college? What was your expertise within that? What are some of the trades that organizations that you've worked with from this to this to this? And then give me some strengths. Write 3 or 4 words of your strengths. So that excites somebody. And so
Hmm.
then they'll go ahead and read the rest of the resume.
So that's kind of at the top where the summary of your
Yes.
qualifications are. Okay,
Mhm.
gotcha.
Yeah,
Mm.
very simple. 2 or 3 sentences. Don't overdo it, and then you make sure your bullets are qualitative and quantitative underneath. And most of the times for the new grad, you put at the bottom just your some of your technical skills and so forth and education.
Okay.
So it makes it very simple, and it's okay, millennials and Gen Xers and Boomers free to have a 2 page resume. That's fine.
Mhm.
No
Can
problem with
you
that.
and that was I was gonna ask you that question because I know, it seems like the rules change slightly here and there about how long a resume should be. But we
Mhm.
don't want a whole book up there. They need something. It's just enough, almost like a screening process, right? When you
It's your
send that
calling,
in,
right?
yeah,
It's your calling card. So you want
yeah.
to make sure it's easy to read. It doesn't have so much embedded stuff in it. And the cover letter will help you out with that a little bit if you need to explain it that it's related to this one particular job. I'm one who doesn't change a resume for each job I'm applying for. That's really a waste of your time. But to keep it simple, and then your cover letters or notes on top of it would be changing. The other thing what we do in the job search piece is put together what's called a competency grid. And the competency grid, once we've done the assessment, as I mentioned to you, like elevations or doing a disc one, is to write what some of those competencies are. We make some kind of headlines, we kind of group them together. And then under each one of them, and each of these workbooks, by the way, gives that example. What are the stories, the little star stories that are under that competency headline? And then you just do it on one page. And what people do is we make it look really stellar. And when you go to the actual interview, you don't give it ahead of time. You just hand it out during the interview.
Mm.
And what happens is the interviewers stop asking their question. And this I can tell you about 90% of the people I've worked with. The interviewers stop, say that, well, I've got my questions, but this looks more interesting.
Hmm.
And they go ahead and they ask you questions off the grid. Now, off your grid. Now you've written those. So you can really talk about it very freely and it also very quickly for you has your star statement in it.
Mm.
Very simple, but to keep to one page is delightful. And even though people, to get it to one page, there's a little bit of work to it.
Mhm.
But people kind of moan and groan a little bit when they're doing the exercise with me. And then they use it during the interview and they said, unbelievable how they started asking me questions from this one page of
Yeah.
compensation grid. Interesting.
It sounds like you're helping them to control their narrative, right? They get to tell the story they want to tell versus a whole bunch of questions that might come from an interviewer. If I can keep you focused here, this is what I do well, and then be
Right.
able to articulate that to the person in front of you. I think that's great.
Not fun. And one other secret. Well, I've got lots of them. You and I could talk till 6 o'clock this evening. But the other one is to create this 9 second. I call it 9 second, or 22 words of a statement. It used to be called the elevator speech, but
Yeah.
I'm kind of jazzing it up a little bit to be the 9 second. So you put a statement together that's just 22 words or less about what you do. So the first question of the interview, they say, Betty, tell me about yourself.
Mm.
And you answer it with the 22 words. And then you're quiet.
Wow.
And then you're quiet.
Hmm.
Wait till they ask you the next question. Because we tend to talk too much. And then you can also look at, especially if you're Zooming, you can, now, if you're Zooming, by the way, the one page grid type thing, you would just, give that to them just before you're going to go on the Zoom, obviously.
Hmm.
But otherwise, the element of surprise when you come into an interview and you've got a couple of people you're talking to and hand that out is pretty
Yeah.
effective, actually.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm here, Zoom, or I don't know how Teams works that well because I don't use it as often, but you can clip a document in there and they can see it right then and there too. So I love the fact that it gives the interviewee a little bit of control too. And
Right.
so, and it probably helps the interviewer out as well because you ask a big open question like, tell me a little bit about yourself. We will ramble for days, right? We're all over and especially if you got somebody who's a real talkative person anyway, they get out of
Hmm.
focus and that can really derail where you really want to go. And then you afterwards you're like, man, I wish I had said this or I wish I had said that, right? We think about all the things we wish we'd said
Hmm.
after the interview when it no longer matters. So I love the focus of this. I just want to tell everybody, so I have the reinventing yourself one. This is the first workbook you did, but this is really a workbook. So what I like is it has all of these different, I mean, very like what you're hearing Alysia talk about now, she does give steps. There's a map in here. You can kind of, I just want to kind of show us a little bit, and I will put the little graphics up after this, Alysia. But I just like that there is a clear cut pathway for people. I see the star thing written here. They can't see it here,
Mhm.
but I see the situation, task, actions, and results. And it's not a thick book, but it's good, and people can walk through this and prepare. Um, their position statements, their personal summaries, all of those things that pets that you were talking about. Really, and I love this too, Alysia. You have these words that are listed for a skill set. So we don't even have to think about it. You've given us, I wish I could, my camera could be, there it
Yes.
is. See, look at all the words that she's already identified for you that you can put in your resumes and,
They're
we don't
action.
have to struggle. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
they're action words. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're all tried and true. Over the years, I've been with different other facilitators, and we've put the words together, and that was how that started. So yeah, this
Yeah.
is a combination of a lot of probably I've been thinking about these books for about 10 or 15 years, and I
Hmm.
finally did them. But they're good. And yeah, and the design one, similar type things, but we talk a little bit more about your entrepreneur gigs if you want to do that. I have a speaker on that. 5 things employers want, and these are all from different programs we've done over the years. I've done over the years. The one
Hmm.
interesting thing, I know you like statistics, but do you know only 17% of people know what their values are?
I bet. Is it that high? I'm surprised it's 17%.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
know?
So that's another piece that either through the assessments or for you to write it down to do that. There's a piece in this book in particular where we do an exercise where you write those values down. And you've seen this when you go into corporations, you see these big signs and it says, here's our mission, our vision, and our
Right.
values. But nobody ever really defines what that is. So this
Mhm.
worksheet says, what are your values? And what are the in and out behaviors for that? So if you're saying that you want, mm, you want to make sure that the work that you're doing is meaningful work. Okay.
Mhm.
So what is that to you? And what is it not to you? What's the in behavior? What's the out behavior? Because they're going to ask you, give me the top 3 values of yours. That might be another question. And you
Mhm.
might say, well, making a contribution. Also, being able to balance my life, being able to, do some technical pieces, whatever it is, and maybe to have fun, whatever.
Mhm.
Um, so, and tells it, well, what do you mean by those values? And then now you already have a definition. We write that down too, a definition of what it is for you and what it is not. Now, if they
Mhm.
start talking about some of your nots on the list, maybe not, maybe it's not your particular company to work with.
Right.
So
Yeah.
at least you have that too. And if you're doing a Zoom thing, you can have that off to the side to look at,
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
or even where you're doing something in person. And so you have got the values, you have your competency grid, and you are pretty much ready for your interview.
Yeah.
With
I
the
hope people are doing the homework on the front end to even find out what a company's values are to make sure that company's values line up with their own personal values too. Because if
exactly
you try to go for a job with an organization and you don't always believe in the way they think and the culture of that place, it's not going to be a good marriage.
right.
So I hope people will do their front end work and not just go for a job out of desperation, but because you think it's going to be a good fit for your life. Because this is about a career, isn't it?
Right. One of the best people I interviewed when I was first in this industry, I was working with Computer Sciences Corporation, and I was up in Newport, Rhode Island, interviewing people. And this young lady, I don't know where this memory is coming from, but anyway, this young lady had done her homework, and she told me about the company and the division that she would like to
Mhm.
get into.
Yeah.
And it impressed
Isn't
that
that
always
impressive?
impresses, yeah. And to this day, anybody I've talked to or interviewed or helped them interview if I say to them, please research that organization.
Hmm.
So you have
Yeah.
some facts in front of you about and that the fact that this particular thing really jazzes you and you want to be able to, add your contribution to what they're already doing.
Hmm. And to me, there's no excuse. I mean, nowadays with technology being what it is, with there's so much information at your fingertips, a simple Google will help, right? So do a little bit of work on the
Hmm.
front end, so that you know what you're getting into.
Right. And make sure that your answers are your answers. I know AI can do a lot of stuff for you,
Right. Oh
but
my.
my biggest thing is, because very truthfully, some of AI questions are being, um, disputed, or the answers are being disputed because they're not truly you. So I would truly, make sure it's honestly, and so you have
Yeah.
to sit down and work on it a bit, and how you're going to answer those questions and have that ready to go.
I
So
think that authenticity will take people a long ways. And so they do have to think about, how am I going to come across? Do I sound like I got some kind of rote response that I grabbed off the internet? Because they can see through that. A good interviewer can
sure,
see through that, especially if other people are doing the same thing and you come in and say the exact words somebody else just said. They know you got it off the internet, right? So just be truthful and be true to
right.
yourself. And that's what would shine through. And I think they would appreciate that more.
And also that competency grid, nobody does that. Nobody has something prepared that they're going to give the interviewers. And
Mhm.
it's that element of surprise, as mentioned, that you can use. And people's like, oh, everyone who's ever used it come back to me, and said it worked like a charm.
Yeah.
Uh, one person I know, she's in Oregon, and actually she's mentioned in the Design Your Career book, and she, did the grid, and the last block on the grid talked about her community work, or she talked about that. And they asked her, so she talked about it, and this was for a director of a hospital. And because and they saw her grid, and she came back to me and said, well, that they kept asking me questions once they saw that on my grid. And I'm very proud to say that she has now not an administrator for just one hospital, but a whole system of
Oh,
hospitals,
wow.
two or three of them in Oregon, Eugene, Oregon area.
Mhm. Absolutely.
And that, she's gone beyond, obviously what the original resume that she did and the original competency grid, but that's how she got started.
Mhm. You mentioned earlier, because we've been talking a lot about like entering into a job, applying
Sure.
for a position, but I thought I heard you say earlier that even in using a career coach, you could have a coach that helps you once you're in your organization to get to
Right.
the next level. So how is that different from the resume stuff?
Right. So again, I would start by doing actually the competency grid. I would do the assessment again to make sure that the values, of course, you have the values of the organization, but to make sure you're settled with your values and what they are, and then the competency grid. But also, you can, before even jobs come out, if there's work you can do with other departments, how you can help them, how you can get in there and show your face, and they see that you do, that you can talk and chew go at the same time, but basically to use your technology. So if there's an opportunity where you can do a special project, or create something and pass on to more than one department, they'll start talking about you in a very favorable way. So that's a possibility, because you want, again, it's networking, if you would. It's presenting yourself in different lights within your organization.
Mhm.
I've worked at a lot of different companies. When I worked for Starwood Hotels, for example, if there was something in another city or another town, and you could go there and do some type of project with them ahead of time, they'll see your work.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Um, or within your particular location, you can do that as well.
Mhm.
And and that's for all generations. It can do that. Now,
Yeah.
there again, for boomers, just to mention this, uh, as you are deciding what you're going to do next in ProTire or whatever, it really is important. I have something on that I'm working on, doing some pilot programs. It's called Before You Go, Coach What You Know. So before you leave an organization, all these skills and processes you have, take that team and really push that information down to the other generations. And also your Gen Xers who are coming up, they really want to know what they need to know in order to work with the executives in the group.
Mhm.
Pass that knowledge down. Don't keep it inside. Don't leave
Mm.
the organization without doing that. The other
Yes.
the other thing for boomers too is don't leave the job, boomers, without asking them, is there a way I could do some consulting back to you when I leave?
Mhm. Mhm.
So you got a little dinero, in your pocket.
Right. Mhm.
So that is a great thing to do. And a number of people have done that a lot, and that's then help them parlay that into a consulting business.
I know
Because a lot
several
of
people. Mhm.
yep, there's a lot. None of us are going to actually leave exactly at age 65. We're going to
Mhm.
go and if we can consult back to them, we're healthy. So let's use it as long as we can.
That's right. That's what I hear from the folks who are like, 60, 65, 70,
Yeah,
even,
yeah,
and higher, that
yeah,
they've been, when you think about how much institutional knowledge they have, they walk away with years and years and years of experience and
right,
wisdom that if the companies are smart enough, they can contract with those people, have them to be a consultant. You don't have to pay all the extra stuff you would if they were an employee, yet you get the benefits of all of the
right.
knowledge they have. So by all means, that's a really good a next step for somebody who has such great knowledge about the work that they love.
And before you do it, say propose to the companies, which is what I'm doing here. Propose to the companies, how can I take my knowledge? Is it okay if I take? Well, it's not okay. It's of course it's fine. Take your knowledge and pass it down, not just to that team. Are there other teams that I interface with that I could also pass my knowledge down to?
Mhm.
Wow,
Mhm.
that that's while you're getting a paycheck from them, and then say that's how what I can do to help you after I leave the organization.
Yeah.
So it's for those boomers as well. And Gen Xers, you got to figure out what you're going to do as far as helping out and getting to the executive suite as well.
Mhm.
The other thing you can talk, I also, you're probably familiar with this too, called stay interviews.
Mhm.
Stay interviews are basically, you can also, organizations can ask you what's it going to take for you to stay. And it's not
Mhm.
just money, it's all these other things. And you
Mhm.
can also say to them, what it's going to take for me to stay is this, this, and this. And it doesn't have to be money. It's probably better that
Yeah.
it's not just money.
Now
So,
that I don't think companies do enough of. I really appreciate those who, have bought into that idea because you do need to retain people. We don't want people walking out of the door to the
it's
competitor down the
expensive.
street.
Right. It's
Yeah. So what do they need? And if companies will be honest enough and do some inside work to determine, are we, doing the best things for our people, or have we created a workplace that folks like to come to? Is the culture acceptable to our best workers? And so
right.
if they're doing the work on the inside to figure those things out, then they can keep their people. If things aren't working out that well, then you got some work to do, and you should be doing these kinds of interviews like what you just described
And
about.
it's expensive to replace people,
It
you know?
is. Yeah.
And why why you throwing people out? There's no need to do that.
Or
Um,
even allowing them to leave.
right. And how are you cultivating them to come on up, especially the other generations? And
Mhm.
they want to see that because that means, oh, you value us.
Right, right, right. Absolutely.
And we okay, so it's not just benefits, but the value of having a senior person mentor you, coach you, and so forth. And you have
Yeah.
to ask questions. The other thing that I've done over the years, it's part of the coaching model that I work with. I went to Hudson Institute. Anyway, we talk about have friends that are 10 years younger than you are and 10 years older than you.
Hmm.
The 10-year older ones will say, here's what's going to happen. Over your time as a corporate person, perhaps
Hmm.
any organization, and then for 10 years younger, that helps people who are Gen Xers and Boomers figure. It helps us stay current as well.
Right. Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's
Yeah.
I love that principle to do that as well.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, just learn to get along with everybody. Because I have my friend range runs the gamut because I chat with everybody, it doesn't matter anyway.
Exactly,
Just
me
because I
too.
have a curiosity about people. But to your point, and I just wanted to be there are no hard and fast rules for everybody who's listening to Alysia talk about Gen Zers and millennials and Gen Xers and baby boomers, right? Because those numbers tend to move in terms of the generations. There's no hard and fast one, but there's a kind of a general span that we're looking at, because the boomers, all of them pretty much are in retirement age. And because they were such a large number of babies that were born back during that time, I think it was like, I don't know, 77 million. I've heard 80 million somewhere there. So they have a long time to be out of the job market. Many of them are still in the job market, but they're on their way out. And then so you got the Gen Xers. I'm on the cusp of Gen X, and between a Gen Xer and a boomer. Yeah, because I just turned 60 this year. So we're right on the edge. So I'm mostly considered a Gen Xer. But yeah, we are, the older of us are on, on this side where I am, but there's still Gen Xers who are in their 50s, right? And then you got this other big, and we're much smaller generation. But then you got this huge generation coming after us, the millennials. They run a big game. It's a bunch of them. They're the primary workers in the workplace right now. So they're in the prime of their work, their work careers. And so I would think these career coaches would really be positioned to help them as they climb the ladder. The Gen Zers, by the way, y'all heard me say that earlier. That's my daughter's whole generation, those 20-something-year-olds that are just really getting into the younger 20s too, that are just getting into the job market. So we've got to know how to navigate all these different generations. There's at least 4 in the workplace right now.
Exactly. And 5. And I also have, I'll see if I can find it here really quick. I also have a little chart in here too. Boom, boom, boom.
There you go. Wonderful. Yes.
And it's also on my website about the different generations and how to talk to each other.
Oh, nice. Oh, how about that?
This one, when I had originally done it, even talked about traditionalists, because traditionalists, the top of them, were born in 1946, so they're still around, some of them. And the boomers, but what are the words that are connected with them? Boomers were idealistic. Gen Xers were kind of skeptical, questioning things. Millennials very hopeful, and the Gen Zs are really how fast can I do it? So that's, but it also talks about some of the things that work for them, words that work for them, and also the type of coaching we should do with each of those different generations. So before the meeting, you could do that. You look at it.
Yeah, thank you for that. And that definitely needs to be defined so they'll know, because we have to remember that people are shaped by the era in which they grew up in.
Yes.
So when you got all the heavy technology, you've got to think about what's going to appeal to somebody who's in that younger set. Right. And so, and technology was really coming on the scene with our age group, the Gen Xers. I mean, it was the beginning of this whole information age, and now it's just taken off. And so when we think about that, we have to think about, so these things would appeal to this person because of what they were introduced to as they were growing in their respective positions and careers and all those things. And so how do we connect with them based on that? That's what's going to improve the communications that exist between these various generations too, because those can become some contentious situations there. I hear it all the time, especially if there is an older employee who is being led by a younger employee. And they might be like, listen, I'm older than you, than your existence on this earth. I've been in this job longer than you've been alive, and you're going to tell me what I need to do, right? And so, but just getting them to understand each other a little bit better, and so that they can communicate and the work ultimately gets done. That's what we want.
Right. And here's a good trick for everybody who's interviewing, and I've been using it for years, and it's really great. And I'll tell you a backstory to it. But basically, when you go to interview, after you finish, you go to your car and you write, and we have this in both of the books. You write a little one or two sentence thing on just a plain card. You don't even have to say thank you on it, whatever. And then you walk it back and how you can help that organization. 3 sentences. And you write it by hand. Or you get yourself a cup of coffee and you write it by hand. And you put it in a nice envelope to the 1 or 2 or 3 people you've met. You put that on the outside. And walk it back into the receptionist and hand it to them.
Yeah.
And right then and there, they take it back to the managers who you've been interviewing with. And over the years, I've seen these kind of letters stuck in people's personnel files.
Yeah. It
And
makes you stand out.
that is better than
Yep.
just we're doing it when you get home and thanking them then, or sending it by snail mail or whatever
Yes.
it is. Well,
Yes.
the backstory is I remember presenting this at the university, and somebody said they had gone to a career fair that day, or they came back and said, Professor Kehoe. I like it when they call me that. Professor Kehoe. I said,
No.
I, I did what you said. I saw 4 or 5 people at the career fair for they wanted internships. So I went back and I wrote them each notes, and then I walked back to the career fair and handed it to each one of them. Do you
Mhm.
know I got 3 phone calls the next day for
See?
internships?
Mhm. Mhm.
I rest
It
my
helps
case.
a person stand out from the crowd because people
Yeah,
just don't do that much anymore.
simple,
Yeah.
simple. So, the competency grid I told you about, the values thing, this, writing a little thank you note and handing it to the receptionist a few
Mhm.
minutes after you've done it. Awesome.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
so they're just fun things, and those are some of the things we've talked about in the book as well. But but basically, it's just good common sense.
Yeah. Well, it adds to me a layer of professionalism that sometimes is missing in
Right.
people who are interviewing today. So we don't want to move away from those tried and true measures that have always been good for because hey, if I'm in this boom, if I am a boomer leader and I have a young millennial that's coming in my office and trying
Sure.
to, win me over to hire them, then I can relate to the handwritten note because that's what I grew up on. That's what I see as professional that matters to me. So they just hit me in a place where I have not seen it from anybody else who's interviewing with me. So yeah, it's going to stand out in my mind and I'm going to give them more attention. So, and it's
Yeah.
thoughtful. It's very thoughtful.
And very
Yeah,
truthfully, all generations like getting a personal note.
absolutely. Yeah.
When you get something in the mail, a snail mail once in a while, that's very
Mhm.
nice. But also,
Yeah.
if it was just handed to you right away, oh my,
Yeah.
that type of thing. So, yeah, so they're just little tricks that over the years I picked up and put it into a couple, thoughts on a piece of paper
Yeah.
and share. One of the other things that I do very basically, Betty, is if anybody wants to have an initial chat with me, be happy to do that. And I kind of ask them 3 questions: What are your goals? What's getting in the way of the obstacles for that? And what does
Hmm.
success look like for you? And
Mm.
we start talking about that, and then we go from there.
Aren't those complimentary?
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm going to share your information at the end of this so that
Okay.
people can call you or email you if
Sure.
they possibly want to take advantage of that complimentary coaching session and answer those questions and get you thinking
Yeah.
or you get them thinking about what their next career moves would be. All
Right.
right. Alicia, it's
So
been great. I just really appreciate you have given
thank
us so much
you.
good information in such a short period of time. And I hope you'll agree to come back again at some point because I think there's so much
Uh,
more to talk about.
There is. I would love to do that. Thank you,
That would
Betty.
be awesome. All right, you're welcome.
Thank you
So
very much.
I want to thank everybody who's taken the time out to listen today. We appreciate you stopping by. You'll see Alicia's information in the comment section. Please, by all means, drop your comments in the comment section too if you have any questions. We invite you into the discussion and the conversation, and we hope that something we shared today has been of great benefit to you. So I look forward to seeing you again next week when we talk about yet another people issue. Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you.